Welcome back to Fear Begins. Tonight's tale drags us deep into the forgotten wilderness of the Appalachian Mountains. If you have experienced anything like this, share it in the comments. Let others know what hides in the dark, and do not forget to comment where you are watching from. Let us begin. My name is Carter Hicks. I am 41 years old, and in the summer of last year, I found out the hard way that some places are not meant to be explored. Especially not alone. Especially not Ravens Ridge. I work as a wildlife photographer for regional publications. I have spent my life hiking, camping, and photographing creatures in the wild. But I had never been this deep in the Appalachians before. A friend of mine tipped me off about Ravens Ridge. He said locals avoided it, saw it was too remote, too strange, the kind of place that never made it onto maps. He dared me to spend a weekend there, so of course I said yes. The hiking took me most of the day. Dense underbrush, no trails, just pure wilderness. Birdsong faded the deeper I went. By the time I reached a clearing near the base of the ridge, the forest was dead quiet. Too quiet. I set up my tent just before sunset, snapped a few photos of the ridge. It was beautiful. Jagged gray stone cliffs, thick pines curling around the base like guarding fingers. I cooked a small dinner and sat under the stars. It was peaceful, until the screaming began. At first I thought it was a fox. They make awful noises sometimes, but this was different. Longer, louder, not an animal. It came from the ridge above me, the kind of scream that freezes your bones. I stayed in my tent, clutching my knife. I did not sleep that night. By morning, I convinced myself it was a dream. I packed light and made the climb toward the ridge. The higher I went, the worse the smell got. Rot. Like something had died and been left in the sun. I found the source halfway up. A deer carcass, skinned, but not by a hunter. The cuts were jagged, erratic, like something tore at it with hands. Not tools. I took a photo, but it felt wrong. I deleted it immediately. The ridge was worse, old structures. Stone huts partially collapsed. Campsites long abandoned. Signs of people, but not recent ones still. Something told me I was not alone. Around noon, I found what looked like an old fire pit. And beside it, a journal. The cover was soaked, moldy, pages stuck together. But I pried a few open. The handwriting was messy, panicked. They spoke of watching. Eyes, of voices calling their name from the trees, of people, naked and covered in mud, watching from the rocks. I turned to look, and that was when I saw it. A figure, low to the ground, peeking from behind a boulder about 20 feet away. Pale skin, dirty, thin. It vanished the moment I blinked. I packed my bag in seconds, and started down the ridge. The woods changed on the way down. More symbols carved into trees, marks in the dirt, footprints, barefoot. Large and too many to count. Something was following me. By nightfall I made it back to my tent, except it had been torn apart, ripped from top to bottom. My supplies were gone. All but the flashlight I kept in my pack. The screaming started again, but this time it was closer. Surrounding me, coming from multiple directions, voices that were not quite human. Laughter that did not belong in the dark. I ran. I do not remember much after that. Only flashes, faces in the trees, a hand reaching from the bush, stumbling and falling through the brush, until I woke up on a Forest Service road at sunrise. Ranger found me hours later. I was bruised, dehydrated, and my camera was missing. When I told them where I had been, he went pale. "You are lucky to be alive," he said. people go missing up there. People who are never found. He never asked for details, he just told me not to go back. And I never did. But sometimes at night, I hear those screams again, even when I am hundreds of miles from that place, and I wonder if they marked me, if Raven's Ridge ever truly lets anyone go. My name is Morgan Willis. I am 39 years old, and for the last 7 years I have worked as a private road surveyor. That means I hike into places no one visits anymore. I walk old dirt roads that have not seen a vehicle in decades. I record erosion patterns, take measurements, and log data for the state. Usually I am alone. But I have never feared the woods, not until last fall. Not until I followed the whistling. I was assigned to survey Route 218B, an abandoned stretch of road deep in the heart of rural Appalachia. There were no towns nearby, just faded topography and tree-choked hills. The state wanted to know if the road was salvageable or if it should be removed entirely. I drove out on a cold October morning. The air was thin, the fog was thick. Perfect horror movie weather. But to me, it was just another day on the job. The pavement ended after 15 minutes, and what remained of the road disappeared into the trees. Thick brush crept in from both sides. Branches arched overhead like a tunnel. I parked at the edge, strapped on my gear, and started walking. The first hour was uneventful, just silence and the crunch of old leaves beneath my boots. Then I heard it, whistling, a soft, slow tune, coming from deep in the woods to my right. It was not a bird, it was not the wind, it sounded like a person, and it was repeating the same 6 notes, over and over. No matter how far I walked, it stayed just beyond the trees, always nearby, never visible. At first I thought it was a hunter, maybe some kid playing a prank, but there were no tire tracks, no footprints, and the deeper I went, the older the road became. Moss covered the asphalt. Tree roots had broken through the surface, and that whistling never stopped. After 2 hours, I reached the collapse. A landslide had taken out a massive chunk of the road. Rocks, earth, and trees had swallowed everything. I took my photos and turned back, but the whistling started again, closer this time, to my left, then behind me, then ahead. It was surrounding me. I stopped walking, pulled out my phone to record it, but there was no sound. The second I hit record, the whistling stopped, dead silence, like the forest was holding its breath. Then the smell hit me, rot, like meat left in the sun, and with it came the feeling of being watched. Heavy eyes on the back of my neck. I spun around, flashlight raised. Nothing. I started walking faster, then jogging, then sprinting. The road twisted and I stumbled, cut my palm on broken pavement. As I stood up, I saw them, 5 figures, standing at the tree line, barefoot, thin, naked but covered in mud and leaves. Their skin was pale and stretched. Their eyes were wide and unblinking, and they were not breathing, just watching. One of them tilted its head and whistled that same 6-note tune, slow, deliberate. I ran, branches cut my face, thorns tore my sleeves. I ran until my legs burned, until the road returned to gravel, until I saw my truck. I did not look back. I did not stop. I jumped in and drove faster than I ever have. I reported the collapse to the state office, but I did not mention the rest. Who would believe me? I was shaken, but part of me thought it was over, until the next week, when I found something on my porch, a pinnacone, wrapped in twine. Just like the ones I saw hanging from the trees near those things. And beside it, a small wooden flute, carved with 6 holes, the same 6 notes. That night I heard whistling outside my window, the same 6 notes, over and over, coming from the edge of the woods, and I live nearly 80 miles from Route 218B. I moved out 2 months later, but sometimes, in quiet places, when the wind is still, I hear that tune again, and I know they remember me, and they are still watching. My name is Elijah Barker. I am 42 years old, and until last year I had never believed in legends. I was raised in a small Appalachian town called Riston Hollow. About 3 hours from Charleston by winding road, it is a forgotten place, a patchwork of rotting porches and leaning barns, still clinging to its name like a ghost too stubborn to leave. I grew up hearing stories about feral people, but to most of us they were campfire tales. Things you whispered about to scare new kids or outsiders. Until I became a forest guide, and until I found the cabin without a door. My job was to lead hikers through safe trails in Black Ridge Forest, a dense and mostly untouched range west of Riston Hollow. The forest is old. The kind of old that makes you feel like you are being watched the second you step in. But it was my home. I knew the trees, the ridges, the streams. I thought I knew all of it, until I took a solo hike in late September, just to scout a new path for fall tourists. The morning was cool, the fog was low. Birdsong echoed in the distance, but something felt off. The forest was too quiet. Like everything was waiting. I hiked until I found a path I had never seen. Narrow and overgrown, like it had not been walked in years. But something pulled me down it, curiosity or something else. I do not know. About a mile in, I found the cabin. It sat between 2 massive oaks, covered in moss and vines. The roof sagged. The wood was blackened by time, but it was not the age that made me freeze. It was that the cabin had no door, just a gaping black rectangle where the entrance should be, and carved above it were the words, "She does not knock." I stood there for a long time, trying to make sense of it. It looked abandoned, but the earth around it was clear. No leaves on the porch, no vines blocking the entry, like something had kept the space clean. I stepped closer, and the air grew cold, not cool, cold, like walking into a cellar. And then I heard it, a whisper, so faint I almost missed it. "Do not look inside." I turned fast, but no one was there. Just trees, just silence. I should have left, but I stepped inside. The air was dead, heavy, like breathing in water. The walls were lined with bones, strung together with twine, hung like curtains, animal skulls mostly, but one looked human. The floor creaked under my boots. The wood was soft, wet. In the back of the room was a chair, facing a wall, and on the wall were scratches. Dozens of them, all the same height. All fresh, like fingers had clawed at it for years. I turned to leave, and that is when I saw her. A woman, standing just outside the doorless frame, tall, thin. Her hair was long and tangled with sticks and mud. Her eyes were white, no pupils. Her mouth did not move, but I heard the words, "She does not knock." I stumbled backward, knocking over a pile of bones. They clattered like wind chimes made of teeth. She stepped in, and her feet made no sound. I ran past her, out into the trees, and I ran until I could not breathe. I did not stop until I hit my truck. I did not go back. That night, I found a new scratch on my front door. Just one. same height as the ones in the cabin. The next night there were 2, then 3. On the 4th night I removed the door and nailed the frame shut. But the scratches moved to my windows, to the walls, to the inside. One night I woke up with scratches on my chest, thin and clean, like something had marked me, and I remembered the whisper. Do not look inside, but I had walked into her place, and now she walks in mine. Last week I burned my house to the ground, and I live in a trailer now. No doors, no windows, just tarps and open air. But even now at night, I hear the bones clattering. And I know she is coming, because she does not knock. My name is Caleb Morris. I am 39 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I had never told anyone what happened to me when I was 22. I was young and dumb, living off odd jobs and couch surfing in the Appalachian region of Kentucky. At the time I thought it was romantic, wandering through towns with just my guitar and a backpack, writing songs, chasing sunsets, and avoiding responsibility. One night I ended up in a town called Lockett's Hollow, a forgotten place on the edge of a stretch of woods no one liked to name. Locals called it the Spine, not because of how it looked, but because it sent shivers down yours. There was one gas station in Lockett's Hollow, one bar, and one motel. That doubled as a post office. I rented a room there, paid for a week up front. The lady at the desk, Miss Esther, told me something that stuck in my head even now. Do not go past the tree line after dark. She said it softly, like she had said it 1,000 times before. That first night, I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the trees. The forest looked thick, too dark for comfort, but it was just trees, or so I thought. The next day, I played music at the bar, made just enough to buy some instant noodles and a cheap bottle of whiskey. An old man with a missing eye watched me the whole time. When I finished, he hobbled over and leaned in close. You planning to walk at night here? Boy, I shrugged. He said, if you do, and you see something move behind the tree line, do not follow it. Then he spat on the floor and left. That night, the power went out. The whole town went black. It was not unusual for places like this, but it felt different, too quiet. Even the insects had stopped. I lit a candle and sat by the window, and that is when I saw it. Movement, just beyond the trees, a figure, tall and swaying, like it was not walking but shifting through the woods. I pressed my face to the glass, trying to make out details. It was pale, too pale, almost glowing in the dark. Its head tilted like it was listening, and then it turned toward me. I jumped back. The candle flickered, and the wind outside began to rise. The trees moved like they were trying to speak, and I could have sworn I heard a whisper, Caleb, soft and drawn out, like it had been waiting years to say my name. I did not sleep. When the sun rose, I packed up to leave, but my truck would not start. Battery was dead. The town mechanic said it was fine yesterday, but now it was drained. I decided to hike out. Miss Esther begged me not to, said people who walked the Spine came back wrong, if they came back at all, but I was stubborn, young, and I did not believe in ghost stories. I followed the dirt path north, into the trees. The deeper I went, the more the air changed. It got thicker, and the sound of birds vanished. My footsteps were muffled, like the earth itself wanted silence. About 2 miles in, I saw a cabin, crumbling and swallowed by vines. Something about it pulled me in, maybe. It was the smell, like iron and rot, or the sound, a low humming. Not from the cabin, but from the trees themselves. Inside the cabin were symbols, carved into every surface. They looked like letters, but not from any language I knew. And in the center of the room, a pit about 4 feet wide, covered with a wooden plank I should have left, but I stepped forward. And as I did, I heard breathing, not mine, deep and ragged, like something that had never seen daylight. I lifted the plank just slightly, enough to see eyes, dozens of them, glowing faint blue in the dark. And then a hand shot out, fingers too. Long, skin like mold, it grabbed the edge of the pit and pulled. I ran like hell. Branches tore my clothes, my lungs burned, but I kept running until I saw the edge of the trees, and there it was. Standing between me and the road, that thing. Its body twisted like it was put together wrong. Its face was not a face at all, just skin stretched over bone. But the eyes, they were the same, blue and glowing, and they knew my name. I do not remember how I got past it, or how I ended up back in town, but I woke up on the porch of the gas station, with scratches all over my arms, and my name carved into the wood beside me. Miss Esther moved away a year after that, said the town was dying. I believe her, because every time someone disappears now, it happens near the spine, and each time, I hear a whisper in the trees. Caleb, I live in a city now, far from mountains and dark woods, but I still see it, in reflections, in windows at night, always just behind me, just behind the tree line, waiting.